Hello, Professor. My name is Tilak Baisothan, and I'll be presenting the assignment one today. Moving on, the table of content I have here is the raw data I took from the Government of Canada website. The second thing is the cleaning the data using the Excel, then making the pivot table using the Excel, cleaning the data using the Jupyter Notebook, making an interactive chart using NumPy, and then making the Pareto chart, and then charts in the Power BI. Then at last we have dashboard references, and then HTML file and video link. So the raw data I have is taken from the Government of Canada website, which is the open data source, as anyone can grab the data from there. And it's about the expenditures done by the foreign nationals in the business that are affected by the tourism industry. So the people who are not the Canadian residents and the permanent residents and the citizens of Canada are considered as the foreign nationals, and what they have spent on the Canadian tourist locations. That's the data. So then I took the data and I cleaned the data in Excel. So this is the raw data I have here, and then I cleaned the data. As you can see, I've taken out some columns which is not useful, and then there's like nan values, so we don't need that. Moving on, we have like pivot chart. I've created the pivot chart, and this is the average value, which is like average amount spent by the foreign nationals in the different businesses, which is like accommodation, clothes and gifts, food and beverages, and everything. And this is the amount of, in dollars. So average person have spent $38,775 in the for last 3 years in accommodation. So for the clothes is $14,188. This is the average value spent by the foreign national here in Canada within the last 3 years. So this data is from 2018 to 2020, and this is the data I've taken from the Government of Canada website. So moving on to the Power BI, this is the first chart I made, which is the map, filled map, and I have the types of expenditure here, which is the accommodation and clothes, and this is the businesses, and the value here are in dollars. So for the British Columbia, the average, this is the total sum. This is the $9.3 million spent in accommodation for the last 3 years by all by all the foreign nationals. So this is the sum of that. For the Alberta is $8.6 million, and then for the Saskatchewan is $4.8 million, and so on and so forth. So the every Canadian locations, and this is the total of the every Canadian locations in that area or in that province. So moving on, I have the chart too, which is the average expenditure, and I've calculated the average with the DAX calculations. So the average expenditure is the average of the value column here in our table. So this is that, and then this chart is created from that. So this is the average expenditure by person. This is the same as the pivot chart. So for the accommodation is $38,000. For the food and beverages, this is $27,890,000. So this is every different businesses that are related to the tourism industry, and this the average person have spent 106K in the last 3 years for the tourism. So like in 2020, the numbers dropped. That's why it's low. Otherwise, it would have gone up. And the third chart I have is the total expenditure done by the total expenditure of all the foreign nationals. So this is the total of everything, and this is the total expenditure forecast for the next 5 years. So in 2018, as we can see, we have $43 million, and then in April, this data is taken every 3 months. So in April, we have $85 million, and in July, this is $135 million. So this is when the people are going going to the tourist location in summers. So some for the summers we have more tourists than the winters, and we have like more people spending their money on the tourism. So as we can see, when the October comes, when the winter comes, the total drops to $57 million, and then in the January, which is the peak of winter, we have $49 million. So this thing goes up and down for the season, and people like to go in spring and summer most. And I've ignored the last year because of the COVID pandemic. So at the edge of the 2019 winter, I've started to forecasting the data, and as we can see, if the COVID is still there, then the lowest amount that can be or spent is $29 million, and the forecast here shows the $57 million are maybe averagely spent. So lowest that goes to 29 and $25 million, and the highest is gone to the $120 million or $175 million, as high as it can go. So this is the forecast for the next 5 years, and I've changed the seasonality, and which is taking from the last 3 points, and I'm making the forecast for the next 20 points, so which is the 5 years, and it's taking from the last maybe 1.5 year for the seasonality. Moving on, I'm going to the Jupyter notebook. So first I installed the plotly libraries and the cufflink, and then I've imported the plotly, the cufflinks, and NumPy, and then from the plotly offline I've imported some of the JavaScript and libraries that are used for the offline visualization and interactivity. So I forgot to import the pandas as well, so I imported that. And then the df1, which is data frame 1, is pd.read_excel. So I'm taking the data from the Excel file, and then I put the data frame info. So as you can see, we have so much columns which are not needed, and we have like 22,443 rows, and some of the columns are have no values. So I'm going to be cleaning that afterwards, and I'm just confirming that I got the whole data. So a df1.head first 5 columns, and the tail shows the last 5. So I already have the whole data, so 22,442, and it starts from 0. So I have the whole data, and then describing the data, I have like count, which is the total rows, and then I'm not using this much information in the visualization, but I just like to see the average and mean and everything. So then I'm cleaning the data, so dropping the columns which are not needed, so DGUID and UMID and scalar ID and vectors and coordinates, symbols and terminates. So this is all like null values or the values I don't need. So this is that, and then the clean data looks good here. We have the area of residence, so the foreign nationals area of residence where they reside, and then we have the location of the foreign nationals. This goes to the tourist locations, and then I have the value here, which is in dollars, and the factor here is 1,000. So this whole value is in 1,000. So I have the whole data here, and then I first plotted the scatter chart with the theme white in the background, and then the x-axis here is the reference date, and the y-axis here I have the value of the data, so like the dollars, and the categories are the area of residence, so the people where they reside, this is the category of that, and the title here is total expenditure by the foreign nationals, and the x-axis title is date, and the y-axis title is amount in dollars. So this is the timeline for January 2018, April. So data is taken every 3 months, right? So the maximum those people have spent here is July and 2018 and 19, which is like maximum 9.43 millions and 9.25 millions. So like this is the total of all residents, and they've spent 9.25 millions in 2018 and 9.43 millions in 2019. So moving on. So I guess it's glitching here. So next is Pareto chart, which is I've taken from the importing the matplotlib.pyplot library, and then making the data frame, which is the total expenditure by type. And this is the data I've taken from the so from the top, and this is the total of every what do we say, every business. So $346 million, then $126 million and everything. So this is data from there, and the index here is total, the accommodation. These are the type of expenditures, right? So this is the I sorted the values by total expenditure by type, and then ascending is false. So all the bar data in the bar chart is ascending, and the cumulative percentage I've calculated here is by doing the sum of every and then dividing it by 100. So this is that, and then figure is I've subplotted the figure in the figure size 15 and 8, and then made the bar chart with the index, and then the color is C0, which is blue, and then axis 2 I've plotted that with the color C1, which is orange, and at the size of 6. So 0 to 6 is 7 total businesses, and then I'm setting it for the percentage formatter. So the second axis here is calculated in percentage, and the parameters for the first one is the color 0, and the parameters for the second one is color 1, like the orange color. So the title here is Pareto chart expenditure per type, and the font size is 18. So Pareto chart expenditure by types. So these are the Pareto chart which have 80-20 rules. So 80% value and 20% of the expenditure. So as the data goes down, the percentage goes up. So this is the Pareto chart. And then I've exported the data into the Excel file. And going back to the Power BI, this is the total expenditure by the foreign nationals. So this is the same as the scatter chart to make the dashboard here. And I've taken the top 5. So overseas residents spent $142 million. So overseas residents who are not the citizens and permanent residents of Canada and are still living on study permit and work permit, they spent $142 million in the last 3 years. And then comes the second comes the United States residents, which have spent the $133 million, and so on and so forth with the China, UK, and France. And the dashboard I've created here is giving all the data here. So expenditure by location of tourism, which is the every location, and the data according to that location. The average expenditure, which is average expenditure per the business types, so accommodation and food and beverages and everything. And this is the total expenditure forecast for next 5 years. The total expenditure by foreign nationals, and then this is the card, which is the total sum of the expenditures. So this is all interactive. When I click the accommodation, that the value changes to $126 million. The expenditure is done by foreign national in accommodation only is $24 million, and then $26 million by US and everything. And this is the forecast that changed from $100 million to $25 million for the accommodation. So the maximum for the accommodation goes is $26 million in 2018, and then it's forecasting like $23 million every year after the COVID goes, obviously. And according to the different industries, the color changes, and it shows the data for the food and beverages, the Manitoba, city only has like $4.6 million, and so on and so forth. Thank you.